What if where you started was not a mistake, but a message? What if the lack you see today is actually proof that God chose you? History shows us that God never announces his chosen ones with noise. He reveals them through process. This message is not for those who are comfortable. It is for those who started with nothing but carry something burning on the inside. Because when God places his hand on a life, obscurity becomes training, obedience becomes alignment, and vision becomes destiny. This is not a message about money. This is a message about calling, stewardship, and divine assignment. God has never been impressed by advantages, titles, or positions that look powerful to human eyes. From the beginning of time, he has deliberately bypassed what appears strong and chosen what appears weak, so that his glory would be unmistakable. When God chooses beginnings, he chooses places where human help is limited, where pride cannot survive, and where dependence on him becomes a necessity. A beginning without advantage forces faith to grow. It forces the heart to listen, the spirit to lean, and the soul to trust beyond what is visible. God often allows his chosen ones to start where resources are scarce, so that revelation becomes rich. When there is nothing to rely on except God, obedience becomes sharper and hearing his voice becomes clearer. This is why many of God's chosen people begin unnoticed, underestimated, and overlooked. Heaven is not threatened by smallness. Heaven is threatened only by pride. Throughout Scripture, the pattern is consistent. God did not choose the eldest son simply because of birth order, nor the strongest warrior because of physical power. He chose the one with the right heart posture. Beginnings strip away false confidence and replace it with spiritual authority. When God calls someone out of obscurity, he is not punishing them, he is protecting them. Obscurity hides the work of God until the foundation is strong enough to carry public weight. Advantage can sometimes rush people into exposure before they are prepared, but God's way is slower and deeper. He builds from the inside out, shaping character long before releasing influence. A weak beginning becomes the training ground where humility is formed, where gratitude is learned, and where dependence on God becomes a lifestyle rather than a moment. Process is the language God uses to transform calling into capacity. No destiny arrives fully formed. Every promise must pass through preparation. Process is uncomfortable because it confronts impatience and exposes areas that still need alignment. Yet process is not delay, it is development. God uses time to mature what he has spoken. The calling may be instant, but the readiness is progressive. Process teaches discipline, and discipline preserves what blessing later brings. Without process, abundance would destroy rather than establish. God allows seasons of waiting not to weaken faith, but to strengthen endurance. What feels slow in the moment is often protection from collapse in the future. In the process, God refines motives. What begins as excitement must become conviction. What starts as desire must mature into responsibility. Process reveals whether a person wants the promise or the promiser. Many people love the idea of abundance, but few are willing to walk through the refining that makes them trustworthy. Process removes entitlement and replaces it with stewardship. It teaches consistency when there is no reward, obedience when there is no recognition, and integrity when shortcuts appear tempting. These lessons cannot be learned quickly because character cannot be rushed. God also uses process to align vision with wisdom. Early vision is often pure but unbalanced. Process adds understanding, restraint, and clarity. It teaches when to speak and when to be silent, when to move and when to wait. Through repeated tests, mistakes, and corrections, discernment is formed. Process trains the chosen to carry weight without being crushed by it. It strengthens spiritual muscles that are invisible but essential. What looks like repetition is often reinforcement, and what feels like resistance is often resistance training designed to increase capacity. Wealth in God's economy is never the result of unchecked desire or personal ambition alone. Ambition seeks control, recognition, and speed, but obedience seeks alignment, surrender, and timing. Obedience listens before it moves and submits before it builds. When God entrusts wealth, He is responding to a life that has learned how to hear and respond to His voice. Wealth that comes through obedience carries peace, because it is not driven by anxiety or comparison. It grows steadily, sustained by divine order rather than human pressure. Obedience keeps the heart anchored when resources increase, preventing success from becoming an idol. Without obedience, wealth amplifies flaws, but with obedience, wealth becomes a tool. God tests obedience long before financial increase appears. He watches how a person handles instruction, correction, and restraint. Obedience is proven in unseen moments, in private decisions, and in small responsibilities that seem insignificant. A person who obeys when no one is watching demonstrates trustworthiness. Wealth follows obedience because obedience proves maturity. God is not persuaded by plans, intelligence, or effort alone. He responds to submission. When obedience governs a life, wealth finds a safe landing place. It arrives without eroding values or distorting identity. Obedience keeps success from replacing God and keeps provision from redefining purpose. Ambition pushes people to chase outcomes, but obedience trains people to honor process. Ambition asks, "How fast can I get there?" Obedience asks, "Is this what God said?" One produces pressure, the other produces clarity. Wealth gained through ambition often demands compromise, but wealth released through obedience protects integrity. God does not reward hunger for power, He rewards faithfulness. Obedience aligns actions with heaven's priorities, and when alignment exists, provision follows naturally. Wealth is not chased, it is attracted by order. Abundance in God's design is never for personal elevation alone. It is entrusted for impact. God blesses people so they can become channels, not containers. When abundance flows through a life, it is meant to touch families, communities, and generations. Kingdom abundance carries responsibility. It sees beyond personal comfort and looks toward collective restoration. God releases resources to those who understand that increase is a mission, not a trophy. Wealth with kingdom vision heals, builds, restores, and empowers. It creates opportunities where none existed and gives voice to those who were unheard. Kingdom impact requires a different mindset. It demands generosity that is intentional and wisdom that is strategic. Abundance is not scattered impulsively, it is stewarded purposefully. God entrusts abundance to those who can manage it without being mastered by it. Kingdom-minded individuals measure success not by what they accumulate, but by what they release. Their joy is found in transformation, not applause. Impact-oriented abundance builds legacies that outlive the individual. It plants seeds that continue producing long after the giver is gone. When abundance is aligned with kingdom impact, it resists corruption. It does not intoxicate the heart or distort priorities. Instead, it sharpens vision and deepens responsibility. God raises people who understand that wealth is temporary, but impact is eternal. Resources become instruments of obedience, extending God's purposes into places where hope is scarce. This kind of abundance is guarded by humility and guided by compassion. It recognizes that everything entrusted can also be reassigned if stewardship fails. Kingdom impact also demands courage. Using abundance for God's purposes often challenges systems, confronts injustice, and disrupts comfort zones. It requires boldness to stand for righteousness and wisdom to navigate influence without losing spiritual sensitivity. God looks for those who can carry influence without surrendering conviction. Abundance becomes a platform to reflect God's nature, revealing His generosity, justice, and love through tangible action. God's chosen ones are not identified by advantage, but by surrender. They begin in hidden places where pride is stripped away and dependence on God is formed. Nothing is wasted in God's design. Every delay, every process, every unseen season is shaping capacity. Beginnings without advantage teach humility, process builds discipline, obedience creates alignment, and alignment releases provision. Wealth in God's hands is never random. It follows order, maturity, and faithfulness. Abundance is not given to elevate ego, but to expand impact. God entrusts resources to those who understand stewardship over status and purpose over possession. The journey from nothing to abundance is not rushed, because character must lead increase. When obedience governs actions and kingdom impact directs vision, wealth becomes a tool rather than a master. This is how God raises people who can carry influence without losing integrity, and walk in abundance without forgetting who gave it.